So Lynne, firstly, thank you for agreeing to do Startup Grind. Greatly appreciate it. It's quite an emotional one for me, in a way, because it's actually formerly my last one, and who better to do it than someone phenomenal like Lynne. Greatly appreciate you doing it. I guess one of the places I love to start with every kind of entrepreneur or guest speaker we've certainly had in the past is just give us a bit of background context. So tell us a little bit about you, if you want to start where you were born or where you were raised, and how you initially got into this journey called entrepreneurship.
Sure. Well, I think the majority of people think I'm probably Scottish born and bred, but I was actually born in Singapore and lived out in the Far East for the formative years of my life before moving back to sunny Dundee, which doesn't really kind of go together. But spent most of my life in secondary school up in Dundee. And I was actually thinking about it yesterday because somebody asked me, what did I want to be when I was at school? And bizarrely enough, I thought back and I actually wanted to be a spy when I was at school for some bizarre reason. And it's quite interesting now that I've actually ended up doing most of my work in cybersecurity. So, anyway, so the spy didn't really happen for me, but I left school. I went to university. I went to Aberdeen University to study biological sciences, and I have to admit I absolutely hated it. University was just not for me. I just couldn't settle. I was a bit young, didn't work for me, and I left and I started doing work at a research institute in Dundee. So I did this bizarre title called fungal molecular genetics, which
Very fascinating.
basically meant I looked at mushrooms. That was about it. And from there, I also had a radio job at the time. I worked on Radio Tay in Dundee as a DJ, which was very interesting. And, talking about standing up earlier on, I always used to do my radio shows standing up because it gives you a lot more energy. When you're doing that. And I really liked, with doing the radio work, I found that I liked, rather than doing the actual research, I liked dealing with people a lot more. So I moved into the pharmaceutical industry. I worked in medical sales for a company called SIDAB in Novartis, and I moved down to London. And then I moved back to Scotland after 3 or 4 years, had a great time down there, and really cut my teeth on learning about marketing properly. And I had the privilege of launching a couple of new chemical entities, which doesn't really come along very, very often in a pharmaceutical marketing career. Family reasons, decided to move back home, moved into another job up here doing marketing. And then I went along to speak to somebody about a new fund that they were setting up in Scotland. And I came out of the chat having been offered the job. And it was actually really interesting because it was all about venture capital. And I took the job, and I have to confess, I did not have a clue what the phrase venture capital even meant at that time. But I thought it sounded really interesting, so I went into that. So again, that's where I kind of cut my teeth in the field of venture capital and early stage companies. I ran a couple of early stage VC funds, and then I moved into, I really enjoyed actually working in the companies more rather than investing in them. And I found out pretty quickly that actually working in the companies is a lot harder than doing the investment. It's very easy for people, investors, to tell you what to do, but when you've actually got to do it, a bit tougher. And then from there, various other jobs working in companies. And then I was working for one company. We were out in America, touring around America, developing and launching a range of products. And it was all to do with Scotland. And the people out there had said to me at the time, gee, we'd really like to learn more about Scotland, but we'd love to do it in a fun and interesting way. I had this in the back of my mind, and I came back home, and then I was actually going up the ladder into the loft one day to get a game of Trivial Pursuits down, because everyone keeps their games up in the loft. And I had this idea that I would actually start up a game and use this idea. And that was really my first very own journey into entrepreneurialism. And I suppose I do say to people, if I knew then what I know now, I might not have done that, but still I wouldn't change it for the world, because there's lots of ups and downs in these journeys. But
That's fascinating, because we hear that a lot of the time. What would you though do differently in a way with that very first venture? Would you not pursue that particular idea, or would you pursue that particular game idea in a very different way?
I would still have pursued the idea, but I think one of the problems with entrepreneurs is we kind of get this sense that we have to do everything ourselves and we really have to run everything, and that's not the case. Quite simply, being an entrepreneur, you cannot do everything on your own, and I would have reached out for help from other people a lot quicker.
Okay, fantastic. That's great observation. How did that venture work out?
It had some fantastic successes. I started off with one product, which was Scottish Quest. We sold 100,000 copies of that. I decided to, if I wanted to be able to develop the company, I needed to be able to develop products for other countries, improve the concept. So I did an English one, I did a Welsh one, I did an Irish one, I did a Gaelic one, I did one for ITV, I did one for National Trust. And so we had all these kind of products out there, which was very, very interesting. And again, I think I learned another very important lesson, because I overexpanded. I expanded too quickly. It's very easy to develop a product and sell it in your home country, you know, where you're kind of, you know, close to everything. Yep. And you have a lot of contacts and people around you. But then when you actually start to take it a bit further afield, it gets harder and harder, because you're not there, you're not on the ground, you're not seeing people. So the message would be, don't push yourself or be pushed into overexpanding and doing too much too quickly. Do it one step at a time. You know, get your base, do another one, get that sorted, and then do another one.
Did you take on any funding with the initial kind of game business?
I was all self-funded. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's move on then from there. What was next on your journey? So,
next on my journey, maybe talk a little bit about Quest as well, because it was very successful, but it also wasn't very successful. Okay. I had some pretty major issues one year in 2008. I actually had forward orders for about well over 100,000 units, with getting products into stores like, you know, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Harrods, Hamleys, Waterstones, all these kind of things, which was in 2008. And this company, the business model was actually quite difficult, because 90% of your sales are in December. You know, 1 month, 4 weeks, 90% of your sales. It's very, very difficult to actually sell the product throughout the rest of the year, although I, you know, really tried. And so in the middle of 2008, if shops are taking orders from you, you have to commit to your manufacturing, and you have to pay your manufacturing in July. You don't get your products into the stores until November, and then usually you have about 3 months later in terms of times before you get paid. So as a business model, you know, a revenue generating model, it didn't really make an awful lot of sense, because you're 9 months out of cash. But 2008 was particularly difficult, because that's when the market crashed. And I had forward orders from 100,000, which I'd paid for, and that 100,000 went from that to nothing overnight. That was pretty difficult to recover from. In fact, it was exceptionally difficult to recover from. So I actually had to close the company down. But this was done with the blessing of a lot of manufacturers and people who supported, and then I started up again. And I learnt my lessons, and I looked at what I was doing. I took things slowly, restarted, focused my marketing efforts on you know, the December time, and decided to do other things in the meantime. So that's when I started to get involved again in a lot more other companies.
Wow, fantastic. Now, your CV, as it were, a lot of it has focused on what we were joking about back at the back of the room, real tech, you know, so biotech, prosthetics. And obviously it's going back, I guess, to your university days and your early days in your career. Do you enjoy it now? Sorry, I don't know if the... Tell you what, if we can put the blinds down, that would be great, sorry. Do you find that your expertise and experience in that has helped you in those spaces?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I really love science. I am a bit of a nerd. anything to do with kind of biological sciences I'm really, really interested in. But I'm also very interested in anything to do with the mind and neurological things. So, but I suppose the thing is that 90% of what you do in any business is just exactly the same as the other one. You know, the fundamentals of what you do is exactly the same.
Which are?
But,
So just
you
some
know,
of the fundamentals.
the basics of, you know, things like you have got to look at intellectual property, you've got to think about marketing, you've got to do your accounts, you've got to look after staff, you've got to network, you've got to learn to sell. You know, the fundamentals in supply chain management and all these kind of things, the fundamentals between every single business is just, you know, just exactly the same.
Great. Okay.
You know, I think that's really, really important because a lot of people feel they maybe have experience in kind of one area, and it's very difficult for them to translate that into another area. But if you do get it in your mind that, you know, basically you're doing exactly the same things with a bit of tweak, it, you know, makes it a lot easier for people to do that. But it is very important, I think, in terms of science, to have a, you know, not a deep understanding, but you've got to have a good enough understanding of the science, not so that you know everything, but so you can kind of ask the right questions to be able to ask other people about things. It's about directing your questioning towards other people. You need to have a level of kind of knowledge of areas for that.
Now, what's fascinating with that, I guess, with the experience you had in the gaming industry and the life sciences industry is the funding requirements as well are very different. How can early stage entrepreneurs or founders, particularly I guess people that have life science expertise, which are probably more PhD individuals who are coming out of academia, how can they navigate those early stage funding requirements in the life sciences space?
It's difficult, but, and I know quite often a lot of people will make comments about the situation in Scotland in terms of, you know, grant funding's difficult to get and investors are difficult to get, etc., etc. But we do actually have a very good system here in Scotland, and there's going to be improvements coming that are going to make it a lot better as well. I think people have to be careful not to be grant junkies and keep chasing after grants, because you see a lot of people who do that. You know, grants are good and they're great at the right point in time for the journey, but, you know, at some point you're going to have to start selling products and making money. So grants, I would tend to say to people who are not involved in the technology area, bootstrap, do as much as you possibly can by yourself for as long as you possibly can. Don't spend all your time wrapped up in grant applications, etc. But for tech companies, it's a bit more difficult, and you do need to maximise the grants opportunities that are available for you. I would also say there's a really big push, and I think it's an inappropriate push, that drives companies in Scotland to raise funding too early, external equity funding into their business too early. And you have to be very frank and say that debt funding is just out of the question. You know, banks are not here to invest in risky early stage companies. So, you know, you need to kind of keep it to yourself for as long as you possibly can and not get external funding. But maximise your grants early on.
Well, that's certainly great advice, I think, for many of the entrepreneurs in the room today. One of the companies we were involved with as chairman or chairperson was Touch Bionics, which exited last year, I believe. Yeah. We actually had Ian Stevenson last year as well, actually, just before the announcement. Talk us through that particular venture and managing, I guess, moving on now. You've gone through almost the various stages most aspiring human beings as individuals would love to go through, you know, the investor side, the entrepreneur side, on the board, and now, you know, chairperson. What are some of the differences you see between those kind of three different categories? Investor, entrepreneur, kind of literally in the thick of things, and then sitting on the board and having like an overarching overview of it all as chairperson?
Well, I suppose if we really touch on Touch Bionics at the moment, I mean, it is a very interesting story because I was asked, it was the first spin out from the National Health Service in Scotland, and one of the funders at Archangels had come along to me and said, you know, could you go along and have a little look at this idea? We're not really quite sure. We think there's something in it, but, you know, not very sure. So I had a chat with the guy and we thought, yeah, you know, there is something in here. And basically what happened was they invested 25,000 and said to me, we're going to give this company 25,000. Lynne, can you work with them for 6 months, research everything, because there was no market there. We didn't have any clue about, you know, the market, the opportunity, absolutely nothing. Come back to us in 6 months, and if we think there's something there, we'll take it on. And so I went away and I developed that business plan. Again, as I say, no knowledge, no information, no understanding. And we thought there is something here, and so the investors invested again. But the message I want to say about that is you have to get really, really comfortable in terms of working with early stage companies. You have to get really, really comfortable with being uncomfortable and having no knowledge and being uncertain. Because if you're the kind of person that needs certainty everywhere, you know, it's just not going to happen. The other key thing for that is it was umpteen rounds of investment over many, many years before Touch Bionics exited. It also went through, I think, I was chairman for about 4 years. It's probably been through 3 or 4 chairmen, and it's been through at least three, if not 4 chief executives of the company. And I think this is really, really important for people to understand that if you're an entrepreneur who's starting up a company, and you're the boss, it does not necessarily mean that you are going to be the boss further down the line. You have to think of this as a relay race. You know, you're not the person that is going to be in charge forever. And so as your company grows, if you're doing your job properly, you will grow to a certain level, but then it needs different people that are coming into it. So if you're going in and setting up a company and raising investment, expecting to be the boss, and you are going into it for, you know, glory and recognition and things like that, think again. Because you need to stand back and think about the decisions you make as to what is best for the company. And what is best for the company is maybe not necessarily best for you, but you actually have a legal fiduciary responsibility to do the things that are best for the company. So that was just, I think it's a really, really important point to get across.
Incredible. I mean, I've heard that a few times before. But it is very hard to let go of your baby, right? So you've started this little company, and it started to grow, and you, in a sense, want to be that forever CEO. I guess, when do you know it's time to pass on, that you're in that relay race, to pass on that kind of baton?
It's difficult to know, but again, this is why you have to build a support network around you. I think boards are really, really important for early stage companies. I don't think people really understand the benefit of a board and, you know, the reasons for having boards.
I'd love to hear a few of those once you kind of finish that statement. Some of the benefits and reasons behind having a board.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the benefits of, you know, having a group of people around you, and you can do it at an early stage with just having an advisory board, which is not a legal kind of thing. It's just people that you can chat to about it. That's a good way for people to start out. You've got sounding boards. For people, you've got access to other people's contacts, you've got access to their networks, you've got access, you know, potentially to money through them. There's so many benefits to having people, you know, on a board, but you need to be very sure that you do your diligence very carefully on people that are going to join your board. You know, ask about people, check them out on LinkedIn, see if anyone else has worked with them, and you've really got to make sure that the relationship fits. Most of the concern that, you know, people have about, you know, having a board around them is diluting their authority, maybe diluting their shares. You know, interference, additional cost and things like that. But I would honestly say, quite frankly, that you can't afford not to build boards around you, because these are the people that will help you grow, and these are the people that will keep you on track, and these are the people who are probably, got quite a lot of experience from you in different areas. There's probably any issue that any entrepreneur is facing in business, somebody else has been through it before. You're not alone. You're not different. Somebody somewhere will know how to get through that.
Aside from Touch Bionics, have there been any other interesting companies you've worked with, and what are some of the, one or two kind of lessons you've learned from those particular companies? And this is more so maybe either as an advisor or as an investor.
I'll come back to advisor, investor. One of the companies that I would like to talk about is BioID.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs get very excited, big shiny new business, let's all do the kind of sexy marketing stuff, it's all really exciting. But what really makes a difference to companies is governance and structures and processes and procedures. That's what I refer to as grunt work. It is the really boring, dull, deadly uninteresting work that nobody wants to do. But believe you me, that will make the difference to your company. It doesn't feel like it will just now, but it will make the difference to your company further down the line. So grunt work, really, really boring. And that's documents, processes, etc. And the reason I give that as an example was I went across to do some work with BioID, which is a security company based across in Germany. They'd asked me to go in. Cyber security, yeah. They'd asked me to go in and run the business, develop the business plan, raise some funding. So I went across, spent a few days across with them in Germany, and I said, okay, where's your truck file? Truck file? What's a truck file? So a truck file in the investment community is what you refer to as all the key documentation that people need. Contracts, staff contracts, where's the intellectual property held, who are the key contacts, and it's called a truck file such that if the key people or one of the key person in the business fell under a truck and was killed, the company would still be able to operate because everything is there. It's really, really important to have a truck file. So I asked them where the truck file was. They didn't have anything. They had nothing written down, nothing documented, etc., etc. And this is the truth. I spent 2 days with them. I got home the next day. And I said, make sure you get this truck file done and sent to me. And the next day, I got a call from them to say that the key software developer had been killed in a head-on crash that morning. And this is absolutely the truth. This just about ruined the company because nothing that the guy had done had been documented, written down, backed up, all that kind of stuff. And it's a real brutal lesson. You must make sure that you do these things. You have to operate your company, professionally from as early a stage as you possibly can. So, truck files, again, really boring, grunt work, horrible. You have to do it. You really have to do it. And I was reading something earlier on today. It was an article that came from Stanford, and it said that companies that have appropriate governance and follow traditional structures in terms of entrepreneurial companies are 3 times more likely to raise funding, as anyone else. And I think it was something like they probably get about 5 times higher, valuation on them. So it's really important.
And you're still very much in the cybersecurity space. Yeah. Which has been having a lot of challenges and has been in the headlines a lot in recent weeks. What's your kind of view of the general cybersecurity industry? Should we just accept that we are vulnerable to hackers, or accept that privacy is kind of dead in a way?
It's really difficult. I mean, the internet is fundamentally secure, purely and simply because of the volume of people who use it and the number of, the amount of data that goes through the internet. That is why...
So from a statistical perspective,
the
things that go wrong are very, very small in relation to the number of people.
Yeah, absolutely. But, there are some incredibly interesting things that, go on out there. I was speaking to one person recently who used to be involved, he used to be in the military, and he was on a phone call from somebody in here to somebody in Dubai, and he inadvertently used 2 words in his phone call that he shouldn't have used. And about 5 minutes after he put the phone down, he was actually called by somebody to ask what he'd been talking about, because unknown to him, his calls had been being monitored. So you do have to be really, really careful about what you do. It's a really difficult balance between privacy and security. The companies that I work with, we will stay adamant in that people are entitled to their privacy.
Okay.
So, we won't have any back doors or anything like that for people to get in, but there's going to come a crunch that, something needs to change.
But how do you then balance that, sadly, with the view of governments, good governments, okay, is there such thing as a good government? Acceptable governments, we'll run with that, where governments feel that from a national security perspective, we need to have that. And then you, as the kind of founder entrepreneur who is very protective of your venture and technology or IP, how do you balance those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it is incredibly difficult, and nobody wants the events, that have been happening this week, to be going on. This is why I'm saying there will come a point that, something has to change, but we will still absolutely, resolutely say that, privacy is important. People are entitled to their privacy. We're not going to change on that at the moment.
Brilliant. Let's move back to the investor hat on, because investment is something that a lot of the kind of founders in the room here and people that have got ideas that are in the room here are very, very keen on. So we heard about the truck file, which is great. We heard about, maybe not taking investment too early before you're obviously ready. How would you define a startup being ready? Like, what do you look for companies that you would be interested in investing in?
Yeah. Again, it'll be different for, so many people. And I think the main thing is, if you are looking for investment, you have to do your diligence on what the investors are looking for. So there's not any point in going to an organisation that focuses solely on life sciences companies when you're doing, making a new car or something like that. So you really have to do your diligence quite carefully. I think what people forget is that they develop business plans and they spend about 30 pages, describing the technology and how it's wonderful and it can do this, that, and the next thing. And actually, the investors, to an extent, take it as read that your technology works. And quite frankly, they're not really that interested. What they are more interested in is the market and you, because they are not, again, really investing in a business, but they're investing in you and they're investing in the team around you. So it is very much about, the person, the individual. People get very frustrated with investors doing diligence on them and their company. All they're simply trying to do is minimize the risk. But also what people have to remember is that the way and the time in which you respond to requests for information and the diligence from investors is a form of diligence as well. So I can think back to some companies whereby I was looking to do an investment in, asked a couple of questions, and the person didn't come back to me for about 3 or 4 weeks. It didn't even come back to me to say, thanks very much for this, the request. I don't have the information. I'll go and find out. 2 weeks later come back and say, I haven't been able to keep me informed, but to actually not even respond and just ignore it and not do anything made me think, well, not going to invest in that person. But the other person who continually kept me updated and said, and asked for advice and contacts and direction, that was important, because actually what you're also looking for in companies is entrepreneurs and founders that know their own mind and are confident in the direction that they're going and what they want to do, but are also willing to listen and take advice from other people. Because if you have somebody that won't listen to anybody else, investor won't invest in them.
What's your view on the current state of the Scottish investment scene?
Again, I would go back to what I said earlier. It might be imperfect, but we're a lot better off than a lot of other places in terms of the support and the ecosystem and the people that are around here. It takes far too long to raise money. Again, there's too much of a push on people trying to raise equity into their business too quickly. I think we need to be very careful about that. There's too much of a focus on this business is going to achieve X turnover within this period of time, but actually turnover is really not a great example of what is best for a business. I don't think for the people who do look to raise external money into their business, I don't think we raise enough. I think we constrain ourselves, and women in particular are particularly bad at this. Women can start up a business and they start up their businesses with a third less capital than men consistently. So women, if they want to raise money for a business, they have to actually set their bar a little bit higher and not be uncomfortable about asking for the right amount of money for their businesses.
Okay, so I've got two more questions. One, which you've led very, very nicely with, is actually SG. Our theme for this month globally is SG Women, where we champion female entrepreneurs, investors, educators, executives, innovators. And there clearly is a diversity challenge, an issue, and I know it's something that you're very, very passionate about. What's the solution?
It's not easy. Part of the solution in terms of getting more women to start up businesses is around language. This is very important. So, for example, a male entrepreneur will be attracted to something that says, are you an ambitious, aggressive, entrepreneur looking to rapidly scale up your business, looking for, fast capital?
Right.
Men will be attracted to that. Women will just turn themselves off because they say that's not me. Okay, so they will ignore it and they will decide that they just don't want to do anything there. However, if you have language that says, are you a female business owner that is looking to sustainably grow your business and with patient capital, come and speak to us. Female business owner, not entrepreneur, identified. Sustainability is really, really important for female businesses and patient capital. Because what female businesses do, rather than going for this kind of, hockey stick, they have a much more sustainable growth curve. So they will probably reach the same amount of turnover. They will probably be more profitable than male-led businesses. It will just take them a little bit longer. But we don't want all female businesses to be run by all females and male businesses to be run by all males. What we want is balance, because a woman brings more risk awareness, which can counteract, some of the bit more aggressive, risky things. Whereas sometimes, a woman needs to be pushed to do a little bit more as well. So what we want is balance across teams. That's the most important thing.
Fantastic. Love. Parity is a great way to put that. So last question for me, and then I'll open it up to anyone who's got questions. Is very cognizant we've literally navigated several topics, but you have such an incredible journey with loads of insights and knowledge. I don't think I've done quite justice in hopefully getting. I feel like I've touched on quite a few things, but let's maybe try and And I made a couple of notes here, and we can go through this. Kind of 3 key things you'd love to kind of leave the audience with today. Just kind of 3 key takeaways. You're an early stage founder or even a later stage founder. What are kind of like the 3 key things you should take away with you today?
I think the first thing would be learn to sell. There's an awful lot about funding businesses, but the best way to fund a business is through sales. And as an entrepreneur, you're always selling. You're selling yourself, your product, your company. You are always selling. You've always got to be on message. And again, you know, I've been very fortunate. I had, you know, a lengthy sales training career. You know, I had really, really great sales training. But you have to be able to learn to sell, because so many people do not know the differences between open questions and closed questions. They don't understand the differences between features and benefits. And if you do not understand the difference between features and benefits, you're not going to be able to sell anything. This is really, really important. So if you do not know the fundamentals of selling, learn to sell, and always kind of be on message, because you are the entrepreneur, you're your brand, you need to sell yourself. The second thing I would probably is probably kind of 2 things. A lot of people compare themselves to other people out there. Oh, they're really successful. Why are they doing so well? I'm not there. Thinking that everything is an overnight success. It's not. Be careful not to compare yourself to other people, and understand that this is a journey. And the key thing that will get you through is persistence. The really successful entrepreneurs, I would probably say, are no cleverer, no smarter, no better than anyone else in any other way. They just do a little bit more. They'll be the person that will be out there doing another call or doing another email, and they just keep persisting. It's just, it is absolutely persistent. So learning to sell, persistence, and I think it's probably not the main thing that people want to hear, but self-care is really important throughout this, because I think people will fall into 2 camps as an entrepreneur. You'll either be the kind of person that goes, whoa, and just, out there, hammer and tongs, everything, and then you probably burn out. So you're either a massive action person, right from the very start, or you're probably a plodder, and you just keep going on and you make incremental improvements, and everything compounds and all that kind of stuff. But whatever kind of person you are, you have to remember to look after yourself throughout this process, because you look after your health, look after your family and all this kind of stuff, and you do have to make time for that. It is really, really important. So learning to sell, persistence, self-care, and asking for help. I often do talks like this, and I say at the end to everybody, reach out and ask for help. Drop me an email. I will always have time to speak to somebody, always have time. And then I'll say, but you know what? None of you will contact me tomorrow. No, I will. Everyone says that they will, and they'll drop an email, and they'll get in touch, and we'll have a chat. They all promise to do. Nobody does. So you've really got to kind of get over yourself and reach out and ask for help.
You do
because
realise you're going to get about 30.
I'll tell you after.
Okay, well,
I'll tell you after the number of people in my mind that will
You got a
contact
week
me after
to
tomorrow.
prove her wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, a week.
Once I did it, and there was about presentation of about 60 people, and about 30 people got in touch the next day. But that was very, very unusual. But seriously, reach out and ask for help. As I said earlier, there will always be people in the community who've been through your problem before. Somebody somewhere will know the answer. Somebody will put you in touch with somebody. And you know what? You're not bothering people. People actually like to be asked for help. It makes them feel good.
Awesome. Well, on that asking for help part, that leads very, very nicely once again into the questions bit. So I know we've gone a little bit over time. Thanks to Daniel for keeping me in check, but we're still good. Let's open up for a few questions. It helps if you kind of say your name. So, I know we've got the name badge things, but then it just helps to kind of introduce yourself. So if you've got a burning question, say your name, fire off the question. The floor is open. Marcella?
Hello, I'm uppers there, and I'm just really interested in your work with emotional sciences. I'm just wondering, what do you feel that the impact that this technology will have moving forward in business for entrepreneurs, but also is there a bridge there for creative arts, and how could that come about?
I don't know if there's a bridge there for creative arts, but we certainly love to look into it. The problem with emotional sciences is that this is a technology that can go into so many different areas. And what we actually are going through the process just now of deciding which are the markets to go for. I'm actually going to focus it on cybersecurity because entrepreneurs are actually, in general, quite lazy. I've got loads of experience, loads of contacts, loads of knowledge in the cyber field, so I'm actually going to make life easy for myself. And I know it sounds counterintuitive to say that entrepreneurs are quite lazy, but we are. You're looking for faster, quicker ways to do things to get to the result quicker. So creative arts, love to talk to you about it though.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Greg. Thank you very much. Amazing talk. I've never done so many notes for startup grind. So thanks. The question when you said take caring about yourself, I'm curious about how do you approach the topic? What's your kind of your habits to keep going? I mean, like healthy, maybe some certain habits you would like to share with us to keep you like healthy, keep going. On the topic you said like taking care about yourself.
Everybody has different ways of doing things. Exercise is really important to me, even more so after I had quite a serious operation last year, and it's taken me quite a long time to recover from it. And getting back into exercise, I think exercise is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. Gets everything going, your endorphins, your adrenaline and all that kind of stuff. And exercise is really, really good for getting your anger out as well. Somebody once asked me, what do you do when you're angry? You're really, really angry about something. It depends on the level of anger. If I'm kind of mildly angry, I actually chop vegetables and make soup because that's really, really good. If I'm absolutely furious, I will go and I will swim for an hour and not stop until I'm exhausted. So it gets rid of emotions. So, everyone's different. I go for a swim in the morning. You've just got to look after your food and you've got to step away from things. I mean, I have been there myself. As entrepreneurs, that there's going to be times that you're going to be working 100 hours a week. It just has to be done. But you have to give yourself a break because it's not really physically possible for people to keep working 100 hours a week. And you actually lose your creativity and you lose your focus and things like that. I do simple things like I email chunk, the start of the day and at the end of the day. And because if I don't do it, which I didn't today, because I kind of said I'm not really kind of sure what happened today. I just sat and did emails. But try and chunk your emails so you're not doing that all the time. And, just take time out. And talk to other people. I think talking to other people is really important. I have another talk that I do, which is entitled "The Road is Long, the Road is Hard, and the Road is Lonely," because that is what the entrepreneurial life is like. It is long, it's hard, and it's lonely. But it doesn't have to be lonely because you need to reach out to other people and keep yourself, sane. Always somebody who's been through the same problems that you've been. Not sure if that helps very much, but...
I'm John. I'm founder of p2pmoneyshop.com. My question is, how do you combat being surrounded by negative people?
Sorry, what was that? How do you?
Combat being surrounded by negative people in your life in general, So people that's
trying to bring you down, yeah. It is incredibly difficult. I remember people saying to me when I'd kind of moved out of tech investment and I was, setting up Scottish Quest to do a game. It was, what on earth are you doing that for? You've gone from tech to games, are you nuts? And I confess that the negativity can get to you. It really can. But I did also remember a technique that I learned from somebody else, that you have to kind of imagine this big giant bell jar coming down over you. I think it was Jack Black, you know. You just have to imagine, you just got to block it out. Because if you really, really believe in what you're doing, you will go for it. I mean, look at, you know, people like Dyson. You know, everyone was negative to him all the time, but, you know, he eventually got through. And I think a lot of the people that have really, you know, good ideas, you'll eventually get through. But what you need to do is, you don't need to be unkind to people, but you need to surround yourself with people that are operating in the same sphere as you, which is why organisations like this are really, really good. Because, you know, your partners and your friends and the mates down the pub and things like that, you know, they're not doing what you're doing, and they will never understand until they've done it. So you need to surround yourself with like-minded community, which is it's really important.
Great. Time for one last question, please, and then we'll kind of do it. Oh wow, we got 3.
I'll do quick answers.
Okay.
I'll do quick answers.
So we go in the order of, so 1, 2, 3, and then we'll wrap up if that's okay for everyone.
Hi, my name is Sukhbir. Just relating to this trap that you say about, you know, as a startup founder, you know, you get into this trap of trying to do everything yourself. At what point do you kind of say, there are various reasons for doing everything yourself as well. A lot of it is really just to kind of save money because you find it difficult to go off control as well.
Yeah.
At what point do you kind of turn around and say, well, okay, that's it, I've had enough, I need to start outsourcing X, Y, Z?
I think a good way nowadays, and I do this quite a lot for the startup companies that I'm involved and encourage other people to do, is you kind of put your toe in the water first by subcontracting. Organisations such as People Per Hour are really, really good for doing things that, you know, you don't maybe have experience in, and actually you can get really, really good jobs done pretty quickly, and so you can subcontract out, and you can actually taste yourself and see how you manage that process and how it works for you. It is a pivotal moment, though, employing your first person in a company. And again, it's all about the relationship. You've got to make sure that the relationship fits, and you've got to make sure you get your truck file sorted and make sure you do these kind of things. So try to protect yourself as much as you possibly can when you eventually come to the point of recruiting somebody else. But test the waters out by seeing how you manage simple subcontracts in the first place.
Hi, Hazel Sharp, Bell's Bridal. Just picking up on 2 of your key takeaways in relation to selling and persistence. How do you know when to stop banging on the door for potential customers? How do you strike the balance between keeping going and actually pestering them?
Yeah, and again, that's quite difficult. There will probably come a point where, you know, your persistence, you know, is not paying off. And I think what you need to do is you need to be able to find a customer that you've maybe had a good relationship with and ask them why you might be going wrong somewhere. I mean, maybe your messages are wrong. Again, you can turn around and actually ask people why they're not, you know, getting in touch with you or responding. It is really, really difficult. I think your gut actually knows. You know, if it's starting to really stress you and, you know, make you uptight about it, it's your gut that's telling you something. I think, you know, your gut is really important and you need to listen to it, but it is difficult. Sometimes you're like me, you're like, oh, you know, I can't be bothered now, you know, and you just decide to move on to something else. I remember one company, it was W.H. Smith's actually. I'd been trying to contact this buyer every day for 6 months, you know. And I got to this point and said, right, this is the last call I'm going to do to this person. And lo and behold, that was the day that they picked up the phone and spoke to me and took the orders in. So I don't know.
Bonnie?
Hi Lynne, I'm Bonnie from the Bonnie Bra Company. My question's around branding. How much of your branding do you think should be about you and how much should be about your customer? Sorry, it's a tricky one.
as an entrepreneur, you are your company. But you're more promoting through yourself your kind of ethics and your brand values and what you stand for, as opposed to you yourself, if that makes sense. When it comes down to it, bluntly, the customer is always right, even when they're wrong. They're absolutely always right. But I mean, really, really, truly, it is all about the customer. But what you're doing is, through yourself, you're promoting your brand values to the customer, and the customer knows. So listen to them.
Ladies and gentlemen. There were undoubtedly a lot of key takeaways, a lot of lessons that I learned. I always learn a lot from these, so thank you very much for sharing your amazing and incredible journey with us. You've all got a big challenge, now she is expecting at least 90% of the room. We need to we need to beat that 50% figure. We can do that.
How can we get in touch?
If you go to Lynne, which is Lynne, at lynnecadenhead.com, or message me on Facebook or anything like that. I really don't understand Twitter. I'm really not very good at it at all.
You've probably been tagged quite a few times.
Well, I think Twitter's gonna get taken away from me, like Donald Trump got his Twitter account taken from him. But Facebook, LinkedIn, or email me.
Brilliant. This kind of next bit is I think very pivotal to some of the conversations that Lynne talked about, which is, yes, if you need to kind of dash out the door, we understand that. The sun is still reasonably out in its daytime, but take an opportunity to kind of mix and mingle, because I say this to everyone. I've met plenty of incredible people, obviously, in this room. Daniel, who's now the director of SIDAB Grind, I think we actually met in this room, did we not?
We did.
No,
We met at Strathclyde Uni.
Strathclyde Uni? Okay, that was years ago. And we've developed a fantastic relationship and he's obviously doing an amazing job being SIDAB Grind director in Glasgow. So just take an opportunity to kind of mix and mingle as much as possible. Huge thanks, as always, to our partners, Grant Thornton, for obviously hosting us. We greatly appreciate you guys for putting us up in your fantastic venue. Thank you to James from Brewgooder for putting on the beers. Thank you to Link Scotland as well, although I don't think we've got anyone from Link Scotland here today, but appreciation to them as well. Have I missed anything?
Digital Boost.
Digital Boost, yes. How can I forget the fantastic Digital Boost guys? Thank you so much for doing an amazing job as always.
And lastly, thanks to Phin, because it's his last SIDAB Grind fireside chat. He's done a fantastic job setting up, and I look forward to having you back here and working with you in Startup Grinds in Thames Valley.
Absolutely. And if you're ever down that way, you can feel free to kind of reach out, drop me an email, and I would love to introduce you to the community that we're building out down Reading and Oxford way. So yeah, amazing. Thank you.